Spacemen, today we're going to take it real slow on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Welcome, Spacemen. Get your slow cookers ready, because that's what we do. Here's what's funny. We're not getting to this yet. I should tell you guys, as I've told you, we're planning on doing a Button Hooked reunion tour 2025.
Reunion tour? I thought you were just getting together.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's...
just sounds better when you call it a reunion tour.
I was just listening to this album. I found our album and I've been listening to it all the way through again. And I'm like, dude, I only remember like 4 of these 20 songs that we have on that thing or whatever it was we had on there. I'm like, this could be a steep uphill. And
like you're getting together and playing?
Yeah, we're gonna just, it's only 5 of us. I think we'll have me, the bass player, the drummer, the trumpet player, and a trombone player. Kind of the core people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, as far as you could go, I mean, it's not like we had that many more people in the band, but
I was gonna say, when you said 5, I was like, how many people are there in this band?
Well, total, I think we had at one, usually on stage we'd have 4 horn players and then the 3 of us, so 7. Mm-hmm. But we had to replace Keneally. 2 of the horn. That's true, 8. Plus we replaced 2 of the horn players. 2 of them or 1 of them? I think we replaced 2 of them. So, total we had like 9 people in the band. Plus if you count Keneally, it's 10. Plus if you count the weird guy that came and played in our last live show, Mikey Badger, then we had 11. Anyway, it was a very small stage. If you're wondering, Keneally was always right there behind us. But listen to this
tracksuit.
Was he just a dancer?
Yeah, we called him a fat man in a fat suit. Wasn't very nice of us. Apparently, I've been a jerk my whole life. So, it's so funny to look back in high school and be like, "Why was I such a jerk?" Then I think it's like I haven't progressed since then. It's been 30 years. I don't. But listen to his album, it's like, hey, these aren't terrible songs. I can see that we had potential. But the mixing, there's 2 things I've noticed. The mixing is absolutely horrible. Sometimes it sounds like the drummer's in a totally different room. And then I listen and think it sounds like everybody else was good at their instruments except me. Like I was good. I hit my notes. Like I'd say 95% of the time I am solidly hitting my notes, at least 95% of the time. Very solid, good tone. Me and Ryan have really good harmonies.
Oh, like singing.
Yeah, singing. I'm great. Okay. On guitar, it's like, what the crap? Plus, it was it's a pedal that I'm like, I don't know why we used that pedal. It was super, super metallic-y sounding. Mm-hmm. It's not a good pedal to use. Should have just used straight distortion, but whatever. So that's the update, everybody. I've been listening to a lot of Button Hooked, the ska that broke the camel's back. It's weird to ride down
Spotify yet?
I don't know how to no.
Do you have a CD then?
We do have a CD, but I found my brother Paul had the digital copy, so I have it all on my phone. I put them into my Apple Music. I don't know how I could officially put it into Apple Music. I probably don't want to because maybe we'll get sued for playing some I think you cut that part off.
I was going to say, Matt, I can send you the digital if you want it.
Yeah, do it. Because at one point, Rob and I were talking about this, and like,
bad.
You were trying to find your stuff, bad. And I was trying to. So, I was trying to find my stuff. Remember, my stuff was like early high school.
Yeah,
and like the recordings anyway, but we had a bunch of cassettes. And they got stolen out of my freaking Volvo wagon because I had like that Case Logic thing, and like, I guess that was the only thing to take. So I found one, but I also we did a CD once. It was like 3 songs, and like some of our best stuff. And I had like the original. It was back before burning CDs was like, a thing you could do very easily. So
yeah,
I gave it to one of my friends. He's like, dude, can I borrow it? I'm like, yeah. And then he let his dad borrow it. It was like, oh man, this guy, like, just imagine a guy in like, I guess at that point, probably like late 30s with a mullet and like one of those Astro vans. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he loved it so much. Like the guy's like, dude, I can't get it back from my dad. I'm like, what? Like, his dad's just rocking out in an Astro van to some high school band. So, but I did find that one tape, and now I think it's at home. But yeah, no, I want to hear it.
Well, it's funny.
You guys had a song called Dublin Rock City, Rob?
Remember, we put in, there's some songs on there that we only ever played live. So Dublin Rock City was just we did this opening song for one of our Skink Patrick's Day shows that we did in Provo. And we had a woman come out and river dance on stage while we played this kind of jig type song. And honestly, one of the problems with some of those songs were recorded in our bedroom. The rest of them were recorded in the studio. But Dublin Rock City was recorded in our bedroom. And so the mixing it's hard. The guitar just sounds like static.
Did you, is button hooked one word or two? I thought it was one word.
It's 2 words.
Oh, look at that.
Call yourself a fan. Did I tell you? It's fine. Like I listen to it and I think, hey, this isn't, I've heard some bad music from people that are, doing fine. So this isn't horrible. Like I listen to it, I think it could be, it was a very good starting potential, especially considering because some of those songs Ryan wrote in like late high school, so what was interesting, maybe I told you guys this, in like 2020, somebody reached out to me and he's like, hey, we're trying to find Button Hooked. And I was like, why? He said, he found this kid was looking for us on some forum. And he's like, hey, there's this band. I never got to buy their album, but I was still pretty young and I just loved them so much. And I've heard them again recently. I think it's so good. And I was like, really? Like, here we are 15 years later and some guy's trying to look up Button Hooked.
I still remember there was a guy I worked with right after I got married was a member of I don't know, like a new funk type band called Slap Down. No, but it did. That's where I was like, oh, it's like Jamiroquai-ish. I thought they were really good. Like I heard them play live once, and like the music was really tight, and they were going to release a CD, and anyway, they never did. But I still think about them every once in a while. So,
well,
I get that kid is like,
and we did like our saxophone player. When you listen to the album, he is freaking phenomenal. He's way freaking good. And most of the people in our band were really good at their instruments. I was not, but Ryan and I knew how to put on a good show. Look, Ryan's really good at bass. Like he's freaking awesome. And I know, but we know, like we were very entertaining live show, which would get us other live shows. People were like, hey, you guys are really fun. Come do this for us. And so I think probably that's what people, and then they hear it like, oh, you guys could use some work. The mixing, honestly, is so, it makes me so upset, but it doesn't matter.
I just requested access, Mike.
I said this once.
He sent me the invite, but yeah.
Maybe in the future we'll have our opening song, our opening thing. I'll try to make it a Button Hook song and see how that comes out. All right, so we've slowly merged our way over to our topic. We did not merge. I'm merging it now. Let me tell you this. Today, I'll say this. We're talking about slow living. And I've referenced this before, but this is where I'm going to start this off, and then you guys jump in. It made me think of this, Matt, when you mentioned it. That I've said on, it was like one of the early episodes of the podcast. I think I've mentioned it probably 7 times since then. This idea of when I was in grad school, my first year of my PhD, I remember talking to somebody and feeling like I had a lot of free time. And then I was like, well, I started watching movies and shows and telling somebody, I was like, yeah, I just finished watching this show. And they're like, how do you have time to watch shows? And I said, how do you not have time to watch shows? I don't want this to be my life. So when you talked about slow living, I thought about this trend that I think we've mentioned before in Japan. That's like, if you're falling asleep everywhere, it's a sign that you're working really hard and really committed. And so it's a good sign to have somebody like falling asleep in business meetings, even, because it means he's trying so hard.
So if you're narcoleptic, you are winning at life.
Narcolepsy for the win.
Yeah, that sucks.
It's funny though, because I guess you should explain this slow living thing, because I actually think what I thought of when you said it, I do feel like somehow if I am not showing all the things I've done and accomplished, especially with social media allowing us to do that, then it feels like I'm not really living up to my potential as a human and a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess start off by explaining slow living as you understand it anyway. And
slow living.
I can pull up some stuff I pulled up, but
is defined.
Ooh.
Should we just lay it out like that? As a lifestyle that prioritizes mindfulness, intentionality, and a focus on quality over quantity. It emphasizes living life at your own pace and not society's.
Is that an AI generated definition?
That is.
Oh, mine's from
love AI.
Yeah, mine's from Google. It says it's a lifestyle that involves slowing down and appreciating the present moment.
My kids call me Saruman now because of my AI conversion. Like, against AI, there is no victory. We must join him, Gandalf.
Now you just need to ask them, whom do they serve?
Yeah.
And one of them needs to respond.
Side note, did you guys finish, maybe your British friend didn't, Mike, but did you guys finish the last Rings of Power episode?
I haven't even started season 2 yet.
Yeah,
okay, I won't ruin it. Man.
You say it's better, right, than the first season?
Yeah, just because it really like develops everything, and it's like the making of the making of the rest of the rings and everything. But
all right,
but I can't remember what your question was. You were talking about like
slow living
as a man. You know, if you're not hustling, if you're not doing all these things.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a question as much as it was like I definitely sometimes feel like when I see things that people are accomplishing, and maybe there's a difference in that, because you can still accomplish things obviously in slow living. In fact, in some ways you could make an argument for maybe you'd accomplish them more effectively. But I feel like I should, this is already a very present thing that's like your busyness status is a social status.
Yeah. No, it totally is. And I think it, now that you say like this is all from AI, the irony is not lost on me. I'll say that because like what I'm about to say just totally makes us look like idiots for using AI for this episode. But but the if you think about all the things that, like, one way I've been thinking about it is think about all the things that technology has made faster and easier, and like think about the joy and peace and calm that comes from doing them the old way. Like a lot of things. There's some things where it's like, this really sucks the old way, and I see why we invented this technology. But a lot of things that were meant to kind of like speed things up. Like, I mean, I think we would all agree, aside from maybe like a solid microwave frozen chimichanga, food cooked outside the microwave tastes a lot better. Like we've talked about smoking meat, right? And like,
go ahead.
Yeah, microwaved brisket that's pre-smoked versus.
I was just going to say, I don't actually think a really good microwave chimichanga is better. It's just
I don't think it's better.
It's like, not, it's crappy.
Dude, just hear me out on the chimichanga. I worked with a guy one time that I worked in the call center of a credit union, and the kitchen was like just behind this divider wall,
Yeah.
and it was basically a sink, a microwave, and a toaster oven, which was a bit of a luxury. But side note on the kitchen, though, the sink was disgusting. And there was this guy I worked with that was just like super dry wit. And I was sitting back there one time, and he just walks back there and he's like, if the credit union had a butthole, it would be this sink. Then he walked away. But me and one of my friends would bring frozen chimichangas, warm them up in the microwave, and then put them in the toaster oven for perfect crispness.
Well, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good little... But see, that was a bit of a slow process.
There was a process you engaged in.
Yeah. And then we had arguments over like Tapatio and some other sauce being the best. But yeah, think about the things that are like, would have been part of our day naturally, say 100 years ago or more. And like the rhythm that you're living in around those things versus, some of the things that are just more convenient, more comfortable, more, quicker, and you can pack more in. I think that speaks to that quantity or quality over quantity, right? Like one slice of truly smoked to perfection brisket from a smoker versus like 2 pounds of it in the microwave.
Gross. It would be so bad if you tried to cook it in the microwave.
Yeah. But also, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other forms of it that just bring, obviously, like we talked about in a couple episodes ago, like that bring more challenge, but that because of the time that they take, it almost forces you to do less during a day. So it works against that, like pack as much in as you possibly can without thinking about the value of it, but just do and like, have more, but really thinking about like the quality of this kind of like speaks to minimalism a bit, I think too, but like thinking of the quality of, like clothing, for example. Like if you've got like a couple shirts that you really like, I mean, we really don't need to like wash clothes in between uses. Sometimes we like just sit in an office, like what's happening, like, so that compared to like, 50 articles of clothing that are all poorly made, but maybe like, fit one situation in your life. I think a lot of guys are just like looking for more simplicity in their lives and feel like all the things that are being asked of them pull you in a direction of more and like lower quality of life and lower quality of products and all sorts of, lower quality on multiple levels. But like the peace and the kind of the depth of experience, I think, that comes from slowing it all down and really asking. Like I remember one time I was at your office, Rob, and I was like probably in this like super fast paced, like, I don't know, build things and do projects and all this stuff. And you were looking at a bookshelf in there and asking something about it. And I was like, oh yeah, you could just do this, and this, and then it would look like that. And you're like, yeah, it's a lot of work. And I was like, why don't I have that thought, man? Like really, like I've started to have it a lot more. And at first it's kind of scary because it's like, does that mean that my motivation's going away? I'm like, is my ambition dying? I'm like, but I think it's like I've used this analogy a lot recently for whatever reason when talking about stress and like the way we pick up a task. You guys know, you've all been like, in our church, the leader of the men, right?
The leader.
And, and our culture about moves. If somebody moves, you go help them, right? Which is awesome. Yep. But as I've reflected on like the moves I've been involved with, like the younger guys. And when I was younger, it was like, okay, let's get this done, and just like, oh, there's a fridge and there's 3 flights of stairs. I got it,
Yeah, one guy's like carrying the fridge. It's like, himself. Dude.
And then the older guys are like, let's think about this for a little bit. It's like the younger guys get frustrated, and but they're like, should we even attempt to pick this up by ourselves? Should we use a tool? Should we back the truck up? Should we, And I think like picking up the tasks of life from that mindset, like, should I even pick this up, right? Or do I need to pick it up? And if I do pick it up, how's it going to fit in my day? What else is it going to disrupt? And for a lot of guys, I get that that's probably just like mental overload. They're probably just like, whatever, I don't want to think about it. I'm just going to get it done, right? But I think that just feeds back on itself in terms of a stress loop. And and times like now, where I feel like I'm in a better rhythm with that stuff, it's just kind of like so much easier to just let go of all the unnecessary stuff and then realize, like, not only does nothing bad really happen, but like your day is way more fulfilling. Like you have like way more spontaneous feelings of like calm and outreach to those around you. Like when I'm in this mode, I just have like spontaneous feelings of like love and appreciation for my family and express it way more freely. If I'm like hustling, stressed, and all of that, like all the spontaneous thoughts I have then are like, get the crap out of my way. Why are you making things harder? It's just like, yeah. And everybody's miserable. But I know I started this with kind of talking about technology, but I guess when you just think about maybe things that you enjoy doing in a slow, intentional way, what would you say?
So I have a few things that have come to my mind recently. Like sometimes I can feel the urge when I exercise to like go, for example, ride as fast as I can. I was all proud of myself the other day because I was behind some dude on a bike who had no clue I was there no matter how loud I yelled. And eventually I passed him and then was pedaling hard to get ahead of him. And I looked down and I realized I was going 24 miles an hour up a hill. I was like, check me out.
Dude, that's like, I just looked this up with my brother. That's like Tour de France speed, dude. Good for you.
It was a very small hill and very short. But yes,
still,
I was Tour de France for those 2 seconds.
My brother and I rode for exactly 1.5 miles on this entire trip. And we were downhill for one of those 1.5 miles. And like, we were like, dude, we're probably going like 40 miles an hour, man. Like, probably not.
Yeah, definitely not. But sometimes I look forward to like, I intentionally want to do like a leisurely ride. So it feels like I'm in the process of the ride. Like it's the ride. I don't want to worry about getting the ride done with so I can go do other things. It's that I'm going to engage in this process for as long as it takes me. And then I think about, obviously smoking meat is one of those. I've wanted to buy a pellet smoker, but I also have mixed feelings about it. I want it for when it feels like that's easy. I'll just put it in there and leave it.
Don't do it. That's fast life toaster oven microwave smoking.
I don't. That's what I do. It feels like. I don't want to rob the sport and the process of like paying attention to what this thing is doing and the temperature and making sure that I know that I got to take the lid off at this point for this much or whatever it is. And it feels like something I deliberately have to do. And I look forward to the process more sometimes than I do look forward to the meat at the end. Or the backyard, in our backyard, we put in a fire pit and you can, we've done it before where it's like we just bought a metal fire pit and chucked it out back there. Mm-hmm. But this one, we had like this plan and we dug up the grass and we measured things out and spent way too much on freaking gravel. But that's a different story. We can talk about another day. But and like it was this process that I kind of looked forward to, that it was like every night for a week, I was going to be out there, usually with my boys, doing some sort of manual labor. And I kind of didn't want it to end. I wanted it to be a slow process that was, and so now I'm like, well, I have these other ideas for our backyard that I want to do. that I want to engage in deliberately and slowly, to where it's like, it's not done. I want it to be like, what's going on back there? It's like, oh, we chip away at that every, we go out there a couple times a week and we work on that thing. Cause it feels like a thing that I could pay somebody to do and be done probably in a weekend.
Yeah.
And it's not like, so now whatever I said to you, like, that sounds like a lot of work. Now it feels like I want that work, but I don't want it for the sake of the accomplishment. I want it for the sake of engaging in the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the more mindful approach to me. That's the slow living, is like, I'm doing this for the sake of the process, not for, not for the accomplishment of it. And that's, I think in my mind, that's part of the difference in this is not, are you accomplishing less? It's not like, to really do slow living, you should be doing less or accomplishing less. It's like, you're more deliberate about what you're doing and engaging in a process that we would have had to have done before. And I think you're right. I think a lot of men probably want that at some point. I think go through some process in life where it's like, I want to go back to where I had to make stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's it's the process of figuring something out, of mentally struggling with it, of emotionally struggling with it, but engaging in something slowly and deliberately, rather than like, let's just hurry this up and get this done. IKEA, you can put that together in theory, 20 minutes. It'll probably take you 2 hours, but it's fine. So those are things that I think of off the top of my head. It's like, these are things that I've been trying lately to say, just slow down and engage in the process of doing this rather than just get this thing done.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was at someone's house the other day with the youth in the ward, right?
The youths.
And they were about to play Capture the Flag, and whoever's house we were at, their kid was just like in the office playing something on the computer, and I just looked over. And I looked over and I watched, and the kid I could see a music player going, the game he was playing, and he had some YouTube video up. And I was like, holy crap, man. Like, how do you even know what you're focusing on there? And it, like, as we were talking, I thought, oh, that's actually one of the things I really appreciate about like the job that we do. A 50-minute session is a 50-minute session. There is nothing I can do to speed it up, it's just 50 minutes. I can't multitask during it. I can't be doing other things. Like, when I'm in the session, I have no choice but to, for 50 minutes, sit and be in this session. And it's where, like, I hadn't thought about it until we started talking about this, but I thought, oh, right. I engage mentally in a different way with it. Because I have nowhere else to be. This is where I am for 50 minutes. And just like, I've gotten to a point now where I used to often, when I'd like read like textbooks or stuff like that, like anything that I was reading, not necessarily just for pleasure, but just to learn something from, I would often have music in the background or something like that. And I've stopped, even, just because that intentionality, that like, no, this is the thing I'm doing, so I'm just going to engage in it as much as I possibly can. I think there's a huge benefit in that. Like I said, it's one of the things is having read right from the Comfort Crisis, just that, like, sitting outside and just sitting there. Like, Jenner and I sat and put together our menu for the next week so that we could make a grocery list. And it was funny watching her, because I've been sitting outside pretty consistently for the last little bit, just, multiple times a day, just to do different things. And she just kind of kept looking around at all these different things that she's hearing. And she even said, she goes, yeah, I'm not used to it. Like, I'm not used to having that, like, I'm always trying to figure out what's the noise I'm hearing and what's that and what's this. But as she kind of settled in, it was just this different, right? It wasn't a rush. Like, we had somewhere to go, but like, we just kind of talked our way through it, enjoyed outside, and someone walked by and commented on the mums in the front yard, and like it was just one of those where I thought, yeah, this just, and it felt weirdly productive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. I think the idea of slow living, we think we're going to do less, but I think what we'll find as we engage in it more is it feels remarkably productive.
Mm-hmm.
To simply slow down and be present in this process that I'm engaging in.
I think we do more of what matters. I think busy living, we could cut out half of what we do, and we'll find out that was actually kind of meaningless or unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. And so I think it feels more productive because it's something you're engaging in that actually matters more. But I wanted to build on something you said, Mike. I mentioned this to you, I think, Mike. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, Matt, but one of these things I look at when we talk about slow living, and they talk about adopt a slow information diet.
Mm-hmm.
So the practice of limiting how much of media you consume. And what's interesting is our society is actually pushing against that. Like they're trying to help you consume more all at once. So this idea of multiple things going, which I've always done. And I'd like to say I'm not doing it as much, but I still do. If with music, I'll try to put on certain kinds of music that it is kind of background, like classical music. But I've had a client who works in the film industry, and he told me about that when you're pitching shows now, that you will sometimes be asked about the second screen. Does it pass the second screen test? Which essentially is when you're making a show, because we were talking about Mandalorian, and I said, there's just not a lot that happens in every episode. It would be like 5 minutes of stuff that happened for 45 minutes of nothing. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's the second screen test. Like they want to make sure that if you're watching this show and watching something or doing something on your phone, that you can still track what's happening in the movie or the show. So in essence, it's like dumbing down the media we consume so we can consume more all at once. Instead of
they're wanting it to be the second screen?
Well, they know it will be the second screen. So they're saying
wanting it to be like less engaging so that
they need to they need to make sure that you can stay engaged while doing something else.
Oh,
so you have to simplify it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not that they want to make worse TV. It's that we have to keep your attention while you're doing something else.
Right. Or a stretched out storyline.
Yeah. It can't be so intensely intricate that if you weren't paying attention for 5 minutes, you're going to miss it and you'll be lost because then you just won't watch the next episode. So it's designed to make sure that we can keep consuming at a high level instead of saying, put your phone down and watch the show you're watching.
Yeah.
Which is hard for me to do sometimes.
Well, and that's when Rob first kind of told me about this. It's actually, I think we were driving on down to your office, Matt. Mm-hmm. But as Rob was telling me about this, based on what he said, I thought the second screen test meant, is it good enough that you're willing to put down your second screen and engage with it?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of now how I have started gauging a show, is I'm like, is it so good that I'm willing to put my phone down? Mm-hmm. Which now that I'm just trying to put my phone down less, that's not going to work so much as a gauge anymore. But it was like, no, this is so good. I don't want to see a text come in. I don't want to see, like, I don't want to play my game while I'm doing it. Like, I don't want anything because I want to engage here. Mm-hmm. And whether or not, and that's kind of the thing about The Mandalorian, at least for me with The Mandalorian, is like, yes, they are like, there's not necessarily a lot that happens there, but there's something about the film work and that I'm like, nope, it all works for me. And so I'll sit and watch it without a second screen. Mm-hmm. Or at least I did for the first, I haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, there is something about simply choosing to engage in a single thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I think it's more satisfying. Like if I was sitting here thinking, so like if I'm listening to this, what is it that I would have to think? I got to change that. And Mike, as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, I'd have to ask myself, like, while I'm doing this thing, how much am I thinking about the next thing I have to do instead of just doing this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think about the next thing when it's time to do the next thing. Or am I sitting here? Because I do this a lot. Like, I will sit and think through in the middle of doing something, okay, this thing's happening next. And I'll be thinking about how I need to make sure I leave on time to get to that next thing. And so my brain's always and I think that comes as a result of like packing things in and having lots of stuff to do. And so I don't have time to make dinner. I don't have time to smoke meat. Just put it on the trigger and I'll walk away from it. It'll be there when I'm done.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, no, this is what I'm doing today. I'm smoking meat.
I think that's the interesting thing though about some of these technologies, right? It promises the final outcome in a less work intensive or time intensive way. But like you're saying, like maybe more so than the outcome, the process is the thing that's engaging. So yeah, is it like we've all talked about with barbecue? When you go eat it at a restaurant, you miss the process. And so you're probably less satisfied with the outcome anyway. But when you make it, or somebody else has made it, and you walk into their house and you smell it and they tell you about it and they walk you out to the smoker and like, hey, check it out, man. Like it's almost done, like when there's like all this anticipation and process involvement, like the outcome is way more enjoyable. And like how many of the things that are just part of our day-to-day lives have we been cut out of the process in some way, right? And we're just being served like outcomes and commodities and products and then it's like maybe like the little bit of the process we get to be involved in, we just want to repeat and repeat and repeat. I mean, you can think about that with just like online shopping and all sorts of other things where, you're not thinking about like, do I need this? You're thinking like, when do I get to shop again and buy something again and look on my phone again? And and then you're just surrounded by crap, or what I call plastic coconuts. And it's like a long story, but that's what I called those types of things in my family after an incident with an actual plastic coconut. But like for me, that stuff, like I've always just been like either mildly disturbed or like raging angry when like items in my house dictate my activity and my time. Like I'm like, burn this down so that I can just focus on like spending time with the people that I love, serving people, engaging in a hobby or something. But like, I'm always striving to find that balance. But it is tough because everything's just kind of like in your face all the time. But I guess circling back to kind of that like process thing, or like how many of the day-to-day things are we just like cut out of,
Yeah, that's an interesting question to think about. What things well, thinking about AI and what I told you guys about earlier, like what things am I circumventing? And it's not like if
circumventing.
Circumvent. Like if I go around this thing, it's not like there. Now I have time to go engage with. It's like I just fill it with new dumb things.
Yeah.
So it is kind of this fascinating, like, I also think it's interesting, the whole idea of slow living, because I think I told you the thing I looked up, it's got a few tips, like doing things at a leisurely pace, prioritizing relationships. I'm leaving off the second part about self-care because that is driving me nuts lately. Focusing on doing things better, not faster. But some of these tips, it says understand busyness and that it's a choice. Say no to anything that's not essential. Slow down and start by small downshifting. Adopt a slow information diet. Commit to put your life before work. I think there's a fine line with some of this, because some of this could sound like just lean into self-care and, don't prioritize work. And so just go on those trips you want to go on. And then suddenly you're 50 and it's like, well, I don't have any savings because I spent it all already. And so
or you don't have
I
a
think there's
job because you went on vacation all the time.
Yeah. I think there's a line to be struck in that, but I think it's interesting to, and maybe it's as I get older that I feel like I want to feel like I am like, I guess I want to feel like I'm in control and in charge of my life, in what I do and where I'm going and where I spend my time. And if I'm not careful, the pursuit of income, or even income for the sake of safety, financial safety, or pursuit of stuff, or status about how busy I am or how many clients I have or whatever it is, that becomes my drive. And then suddenly it feels like my job controls what I do with my life. And it doesn't feel like I'm engaging in something here that I know how to do and I hope I do well, versus something like building this fire pit and we're putting down this stone adhesive. And my son and I are out there, and I have a really old caulk gun. And it's like, I'm like squeezing with like everything's bulging out, like all my veins are bulging out and I can't get anything out of this thing. And my son's like, here, let me try. I was like, okay. So he tries to do it. It's like, doesn't work. And it took us like 20 minutes to squeeze caulk onto just this one layer of brick. That eventually we found out there was something wrong with the tube, because the second tube, I was like, oh, look how easy this is. But it felt like, yeah, there's something still about that feels like this frustrating process I had to engage in, but I wasn't thinking about, I have to hurry up and get this done so I can go on to this next thing. It just felt like, it's fine. That's what I'm here to do. It's just annoying. Like, there's something, I can't even describe what I'm trying to get at right now. It's like, there's something, all I can think of is a line from Just Friends. There's something so resplendent in the simplicity of Nicholas Sparks' writing. Such a funny movie. Anyway, something so resplendent. There is something so satisfying and like in this feeling of like, I'm right here. That's the only place I'm going right now. And I don't have to prove to somebody that I am accomplishing things with my life. If that makes sense. Like, I think I'm too often, Matt, we mentioned your dad about, sometimes this drive that we have as men, I think, to like prove to somebody, look at what I'm doing or look at how well I've done. And the idea of being able to be a slow liver is saying, I know specifically why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's okay if you have a different opinion about what should be happening. I don't need to be upset with you. This is what I've chosen to do because it makes me feel more peaceful and in control.
Yeah.
And now I'm ranting. Who even knows what I'm saying anymore?
Well, I think you were just saying, slow the crap down.
I think, well, even more than that, to be specific, I do think go find something that you like that requires engaging in a slow, mindful process. Like, if you can do it yourself, like there's a balance in this, because I do think there's value in having an economy where we hire people to do a skill that we don't do. But I also feel like, well, go learn to do it. Like, if you don't know how to work on your sprinkler system, give it a shot. Watch a YouTube video and try it out. And if your sprinklers are off for 6 weeks because you're still trying to figure out how to plug that hole you have, then great.
That's a long time.
Geez, Rob, get that together.
No, I think that is, yeah, even if it's not like, learning a specific trade or anything like that, just
right.
Like, I think in some ways, people would advocate for looking at what's the easiest way to get this thing done. And that's not to say that there's not a place for that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like, simple things like that would take us out of like an efficiency mindset, maybe. Like when you think about something as simple as like cleaning up after dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most efficient way is assign tasks and everybody do their thing.
Right.
But like a more intentional way would be everybody kind of joining in and doing everything together, obviously with kids pointing out who's doing more than the other person. But like, but if it's, if it's something that kind of slows the pace down where you're maybe like putting on some music or something as you're doing it, or, it's not like we have to rush to clean this up because we have to run to something else, which I know is way more the norm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I keep thinking about like I don't know how to articulate it other than just like, what do we actually need to do? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Like, because I think there's an illusion in thinking, if we do just enough, then we're missing out on something, right? But it doesn't seem like that thing that we like work for and pile more things on the schedule for ever actually materializes.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's always this false promise that you'll be happier at the end of that, but you just end up like more exhausted or feeling like it's just around the next corner in a way. And if the message we've been sold with all of these like, productivity hacks and like, having bigger and better things and all of that is that, when you get that, you will be whatever. Like, I don't know that that's ever actually materialized for me ever. But I think that like letting go of it in small ways always produces the thing that hurried pace promised me without having to hurry. Right. It's like, and I think we realize that from time to time, but the draw I think is so strong, and it's probably more like a social, either a social comparison thing 1-to-1, maybe between men, or men feeling responsible for the well-being of those that they love and seeing them feeling like they're missing out on something. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that always drives us to work more, and it's complicated, I think, for sure. But I think like you're saying, some simple practical things where, maybe a way of saying what's the easiest path through this is asking like, is that absolutely necessary? And if not, why are we doing it? Like, I cannot stand unnecessary requirements and tasks and
meetings,
and even like tools.
Yeah.
Like if there's a tool that does like 3 or 4 things, I'm like, yeah, give me that. Right. Like, or, all sorts of things where it's like that thing has multiple uses. And so it takes up that much less space. It's that like fewer things for me to worry about. Right. And ultimately if like what we've talked about before, if all the decades of happiness research is right, like the vast majority of what provides us happiness is relationships, like purpose, meaningful engagement with something bigger than you, and being in the zone. Like we've talked about the process of engaging in some of these tasks that like, yeah, the outcome will come because I'm engaging in the process, but that's not the thing that provides the benefit, but it's always the dangling carrot that says, everybody says, if you do this, then you get this, right? And it's like, well, so the technology did the process for me and I got the carrot, and the carrot freaking sucks. So, like,
I don't even like carrots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So basically, Spacemen, go sit on the porch with Mike's wife. Slow down.
Until it's normal.
Maybe not with my wife, but
if I understood this episode today correctly, sit on the porch with Mike's wife. And everything works out.
Nailed it.
But I do, I think slow down. That's the message. Slow
I was
down.
going to say,
Slow
like,
crap down.
it's it's an easy thing to just pick one thing. Like if you have a commute every day, try putting your cruise control on whatever the speed limit is and sit in the right lane and just say, nope, I'm going to let people drive how they want to drive, but this is what I'm doing. Or, simply say, instead of taking the tolls to work and the freeway, I'm going to take back roads, right? Like with traffic, it may not be that much different anyway, but it changes what you're seeing. So there's lots of simple ways to kind of start experimenting with this and seeing what it does. Try it and see what it feels like.
Yeah, I would add to that, like the leisurely pace thing. I think if you refuse to be rushed, whether internally or externally, right? Like you're saying on that drive, I like multiple times over the last month or so, like I'm wanting to just like hear more of the book I'm listening to or whatever. So I just set my cruise control at the speed limit, and I don't know what's going on in other people's lives, and your mom would probably have maybe they're on the way to the hospital or something like that response, right? But it's crazy how mad people get
that you're going
and how
the speed
people
limit.
fly around me, flip me off, and I'm like, this is a good book.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think just, go at a normal speed. Obviously, you don't want to be like dragging your feet, but engaging in things in a leisurely way, right? And I think you're just constantly reinforcing to yourself, like you're saying, Rob, all the other things my mind is jumping to, like those aren't necessary, right?
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So then, Spacemen, come back next week and listen slowly and carefully, because we will not be going short, I'll tell you that much. And catch us next time on the Manspace. Slow ride. Take it easy.